So this orange line is the temperature change over time. Blue line is the actual temperature of the beans. Getting there in 11 versus 15 minutes will affect the roast. So I just enter the temperatures and it outputs a rate of rise in degrees per minute. The amount of time you spend in the last 10 degrees will dramatically affect the roast. And this is the type of curve that we're shooting for, where it peaks relatively early and then we have a continuous decline after that point. A different ending temperature of 1 degree, like you can taste that. It would be so much harder to do stuff consistently if I wasn't taking the time to do it on this computer. Over roasting is much more common in terms of the whole world of coffee. There's a lot of coffee companies whose lightest coffee is darker than our darkest coffee. If that's the cup of coffee you like, I have no problem with that. But for me, that I now see those as really not showing the true flavor of the coffee and really just having like a lot of roasty or ashy flavors. And a lot of people are kind of brought into coffee thinking that's what it's supposed to be, you know, like in a sensory class at a culinary school, they will teach you bitter with coffee. Like coffee is your example for bitter. But it's amazing. I mean, there is really just about any fruit and berry you can imagine, and there's a lot of chocolatey flavors. There can be buttery and caramely flavors. There can be earthy flavors. There can be different types of spiced flavors in there. You can detect as a nuanced flavor in a brewed coffee that is literally just coffee. So we're gonna brew some coffee in a French press. First step is grinding it at the right size. This is just a regular Capresso coffee grinder that you can buy for your house. I like to use the finest of the coarse grind sizes. Generally speaking, for French press and cold brew, you want to go with a coarse grind. For any new coffee I brew, I always start with a water to coffee ratio of 16:1 by weight. I always weigh everything. If you can weigh everything, you'll be able to make the most consistent cup of coffee. So for a normal French press, just any French press you would buy at a store, you can generally brew 880 grams of water, which is just a little bit less than a liter. For that, I'll use 55 grams of coffee. I always like to use water that's 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Some people like to go up to 205 or as low as 195. I feel like 200 is the perfect starting temperature to use. So I target a total brew time in a French press of 5 minutes. When I'm adding the water this way through a relatively slow pour kettle, that means I'll set a timer once I'm done adding the water for 4 minutes. If I was using a different kettle that adds the water all at once real quick, I would set the timer for 5 minutes. And usually about halfway through, I'll stop and just kind of swirl the coffee, make sure all the grounds are saturated. And now set a timer for 4 minutes. All right, time to press the coffee. You don't want to do this really fast. That extra pressure will extract more out of the coffee, generally in a bad way. I would encourage everybody to pursue their passion. What is it that's easier to do besides what you're interested in, right? So